This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, folks. My name is Brian Weaver. I am the Vice President of Services at NSA. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. It's number 43 in our series of NSA webinars. This one is with Billtrust on the power of AR automation. What I'd like to do is introduce today's speakers. You can advance the slide, please. So what I'd like to do is introduce Mike Passifione, who leads the team of B2B payment subject matter experts with Billtrust, consults with both prospects and customers to modernize accounts receivable operations. Mike has over 20 years of payment industry experience, and most recently with Wells Fargo. In addition to Mike, we also have joining us is Brett Kelly, who is the sales director for Billtrust. He leads the West corporate sales team, focusing on new customer acquisition. And Brett has over 15 years of sales and management experience, and he's worked with several high-profile companies, including Yahoo and LinkedIn. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Brian. And I want to take the opportunity. This is Brett Kelly to thank everyone for joining today's call and giving us an hour of your time. We're really appreciative of that. So to go through the agenda today, I'm going to give a quick overview of Billtrust. I promise it's not going to be too salesy, but just who we are, what we do, some of the general challenges that we're seeing across our customer base in the AR space. And we're going to really dive into the payments part with Mike Passifione. Mike is, as Brian mentioned, has been in the payments world for a long time. So we're going to really dig into that portion of the AR process. But we'll do, why don't we hold questions for the end? We're going to leave more than enough time to answer any specific questions you have about Billtrust, NSA, and the specific connector that we'll get into in a few minutes here. But let me get rolling here. So we'll start with some general information. So for those who aren't familiar with Billtrust, we're the industry leader in AR automation. We've been in business now for 21 years. We're headquartered in New Jersey, in the Princeton area. We really started out as an invoice delivery solution around paper, but quickly realized as the world was going digital, we needed to accommodate our customers. So you'll see a timeline of important events that really get us to the point we're at today. Some things that have happened in the last few years, we have become a publicly traded company, and with 2 acquisitions have expanded our global footprint into Europe and into other portions of the world. We do have over 2,900 customers. So you'll see we're dealing with a lot of high volume transactions and large sums of money on a daily basis. So as far as what we do is from a solution standpoint, we really encompass the entire order to cash process. So that starts with credit. We help our customers onboard their new customers quicker with more detailed information to make those important decisions. E-commerce, so we allow our customers to build an e-commerce platform for their website. We do invoice automation, so that can mean a lot of different things, taking over your invoicing as far as it pertains to print, email, and also those AP portals that more and more your customers are starting to use, which Mike's going to get into a little bit more detail, but we can really create automation around getting those invoices to the customers how they want to receive them. I'll leave payments up to Mike. We do offer some solutions around automation in the cash application process and efficiencies with a collections tool that allows collectors to be much more productive and leadership to have more visibility and reporting into their customers' agings. Customers who use Billtrust have seen some pretty significant improvements in the overall cost of managing the AR process, reallocating AR teams to handle more efficient processes like being on the phones, collecting from customers, dealing with customer issues versus stuffing and folding envelopes, processing checks, the variety of things that AR teams do on a daily basis, driving customers from checks to more electronic forms of payment like most preferred, which would be ACH, and then allowing them to move away from printed invoices and allowing them to send them electronically. So what are we seeing when we're talking to our our customers and what are some of the biggest challenges they're having today. I would imagine some of these things probably resonate with everyone on the phone, but I'll go pretty quickly here. We want to, we really are seeing a lot of challenges, especially with the way the economy is now with inflation rising, is making sure that our customers, can onboard customers faster. We still see many companies that have not a digital process as it pertains to, in an online process, excuse me, as it pertains to getting their customers' credit application filled out. Then how are they getting the correct information to make those important decisions and then monitoring their customers? It's a pretty challenging thing we hear daily. And as I move into the second piece, I think that ties in a little bit with credit, is we're still seeing a lot of companies today that have a big chunk of their overall invoice volume that's going out through snail mail. The postage rates are rising. The post office is cutting back on staff and the amount of days they're actually delivering mail. So it's causing those bills not to get to your customers as quickly as it used to, and it's more expensive. Excuse me for doing that. So companies are challenged with solving for that problem. And unfortunately, a lot of ERPs really can't help drive that electronic behavior and have a lot of reliability in tracking invoices. And also, they don't have a good solution for self-service around online payments. So we're still seeing the majority of payments being made via check. And again, that ties back to the issues with invoicing around relying on the postal service to get your checks fast enough to process them. It's creating a higher DSO than a lot of our customers would like to see. And then once you're getting those payments from customers, even if they are more and more are trying to pay electronically, applying cash, whether it's a check or an ACH payment or a credit card, is more and more challenging as companies are taking longer to pay you. They're paying you, short paying you, or taking specific deductions and not sending the remittance that ties back to that. So you're seeing more and more cash application not being done in the same day or next day. It's dragging on and again having an impact on DSO. And then how are you managing the collections process? So we're all these things are affecting collectors, and they're not able to reach out to all the customers that have a past due balance. They're spending a majority of their day trying to organize and know how they're going to attack their portfolio. So it does have a downstream effect on all these things. So, I think the most important thing that we can do to help is really make some improvements around the payment process. But, when companies look at making investments in an AR automation solution like Billtrust, they're seeing these are the common themes of success they're seeing as they, adopt more and more of our solutions and it gets sticky within their process. Really we want to, the core themes that I hear on a daily basis is how do we improve the customer experience and do it at a lower cost and make sure that we're compliant in doing all those things. And that kind of leads me to turn it over to Mike. Mike's, as Brian mentioned, is our payments expert's been doing it for a long time and has a lot of valuable insights to share with the group. And Mike, I'll be driving, so as soon as you want me to turn a slide, just let me know, okay?
Beautiful. Thanks, Brett. So as a starter, again, thank you for having us. Just want to talk a little bit more about the nuances and the ways in which we can improve, we'll call it our payment acceptance policies in the accounts receivable world. One of the most important parts of that process is just really understanding buyers and understanding the ways in which they want to interact. I think everyone here on the phone probably recognizes that no buyers or two buyers really interact in the same manner. So as we kind of look across this spectrum here, understanding that as a supplier, we have a spectrum of different buyers, those small business consumers or buyers that interact with us that are absolutely willing to go pay via online on a mobile device or some sort of portal of the bank or an auto pay type feature. But as you kind of move to the right down that graph, you get into the more mid-market customer who starts to become, I'll say, a little bit more sophisticated online with the way they interact with their suppliers and start adopting like a self-service portal along with some of the other methods, around phone and check. And then, of course, As of late, the enterprise size market, which are now starting to use these procure-to-pay processes or AP automation with financial institutions and these AP providers, they're starting to take over and create some more cumbersome style payments for accounts receivable group. What we're ultimately seeing is, as the last couple of years have moved on, is that enterprise style buyer that you see on the far right is starting to move down market. So these financial institutions and these AP providers that are giving these all-encompassing services are doing a very good job of getting their services involved into some smaller to mid-sized companies. And so ultimately, as an accounts receivable group, we need to make sure that we are getting the proper technology in place to support that for the future growth. Some of the things that we constantly think about at Billtrust and we're talking with suppliers about, and that's really important in the accounts receivable world, is creating some sort of payment acceptance policy. It's not uncommon for us to have a ton of conversations with CFOs, credit managers, you name it. And everyone right now is talking about the cost of accepting credit cards or the cost of getting payments in the door. So having, again, technology and a plan in place is uber important in this type of environment. Whether it's an electronic bill presentment portal, something that can provide you the ability to remove the manual intervention of payments, allow your customers to self-serve or automate these payments while creating rules around the ways in which you accept payments, whether that's a timely card acceptance or an inclusion-exclusion list, ways to kind of limit your exposure to credit card fees and to ultimately drive the best buying behaviors that you want from your customers. In addition to that, lowering fees with technology around interchange optimization with level 2 and level 3 data. It's a very common way to kind of help. That's kind of the crawl portion of the crawl, walk, run stage. And then, of course, most recently, that's starting to catch even more, I'll call it tailwind, is the surcharging options. So we're having more and more B2B suppliers looking at the ability to potentially pass on that credit card acceptance cost to their buyer, saying, hey, if I'm willing to accept your card payment, but if so, our preferred payment method is ACH. If not, you have the ability to still pay by card, being very customer centric, but at that point it would require a surcharge. So a couple of different ways in which we think about the ability to recoup our costs. Again, having different points of interaction for your buyers is very important in this accounts receivable world. So the way that Billtrust has looked at it traditionally is that in that kind of wheel that Brett shared earlier, that order to cash life cycle, we want to provide you all suppliers and all of our suppliers have the ability to accept the payment at any interaction that you have with your buyer. So this becomes, extremely important, whether it's a sales agent on the phone with a customer or a CSR rep or someone in the credit department that needs to take a payment. There's a number of ways that's happening today, whether that's a virtual terminal, whether it's like I mentioned before, a bill presentment or invoice presentment portal where the customers self-serve. And then in Billtrust's case, the business payments network. So we've created this network that will actually facilitate those third-party payments that we mentioned on that enterprise size of the spectrum of your buyers. So those folks that are using those single-use virtual credit cards that are emailing them in or requesting that you accept an email payment. This is a way to actually automate those otherwise pretty cumbersome payments. Diving a little bit further into that style payment, you'll notice that these single-use credit card payments, or sometimes they could even be ACH remittances that you're receiving via email. So a lot of suppliers today, they're doing business with customers that have these procure-to-pay processes. So some of these names on the on the left that you've probably noticed, they're out there facilitating payments on behalf of buyers. Many times those payments come in the form of an email where you have to click on a link and go to a portal to get the remainder of that credit card, and then hand key that payment directly into an ERP system. So creating ways to automate this process is going to be, like I said, just so important in the future, because what used to be a large enterprise style problem is actually moving down market to the mid market, and more buyers are actually performing this AP kind of process year over year. No surprise, you'll see here just from I'll go ahead, Brent, on the next slide. You'll see inside of our business payments network, we've seen tremendous amount of growth in both card and ACH. ACH is a newer offering. That's our ability to actually pick up ACH remittances that are emailed to you and match them to specific open balances in your files or in your OpenAR. But good news here is I think it can be looked at both ways from suppliers or merchants, right? On one hand, we're trying to really mitigate our exposure to credit card fees, but I challenge a lot of suppliers that it's not the credit card that you want to deny, it's the inconvenient credit card that's paid late and maybe not paid in an efficient manner that's costing you 3% and it's 65, 75 days past due. Those are types of transactions that we want to start to eliminate. However, if you can move these credit card transactions into a more automated fashion that are sub 2% and they're paying you in 5-10 days of your invoice date, that's a very convenient payment that's automated and no touch. You've reallocated FTEs from keying credit cards to doing more specific beneficial work for the company. Those start to make sense. So we're really excited about seeing some of this card growth within this network, because what it means is we've actually shifted all that manual intervention off of our suppliers' plates and really used artificial intelligence and bots to kind of speed up that work. I think on the next slide here, you'll notice that I mentioned ACH earlier as part of this newer service from a Billtrust and what's out there in the market. And this is our ability. Not only can we process those single-use virtual credit cards that will come into your environment, but also, it's not uncommon for suppliers to receive a $500,000 deposit directly into their bank account, and then somebody within the accounting department is shuffling around trying to figure out where is my remittance and what is that money coming in applied to. That same automated service in the business payments network has the ability to pick up and extract these remittances that are sent to you via email and actually go ahead and apply them to specific payments. So excited about this. It's kind of a way for us to kind of come full circle and really automate all these third-party AP type of payments that are coming into your environment today. This is just a quick little snapshot of, again, that all-encompassing look. So if you think about the newest kind of style or version and the ways in which your buyers are paying, it's using those third-party AP platforms. They're asking you to accept these one-time payments. But on the other side of it here in blue, you'll notice that, or sorry, in the bottom here in green is what's growing significantly is those same buyers. A lot of times those same buyers that are using these third-party payable systems, they're also now requiring that you all as suppliers invoice them in a new fashion, right? They no longer want to accept an e-bill, or they no longer want to accept a paper invoice. Now they want you to go upload these invoices into their third-party portals. So on your next slide, you'll kind of see, it's becoming extremely common. A lot of surveys out there, Gartner being one of them, that estimate in just a few short years that over half the market is going to be using or have deployed some sort of procure-to-pay suite that's going to require these types of tasks and interactions with. So having the ability to be able to accept these payments, but now not only accept them, but deliver invoices in a new fashion is becoming the new norm. I think finally on our last couple slides here, it'll give you some insight into what we're talking about, right? It's just moving those typical paper email invoicers into this new AP adoption. If you don't have technology today, as many of you probably know, or you're experiencing this today, that this requires a ton of work and a ton of effort. Many of our suppliers have, prior to the Billtrust Business Payments Network, they were hiring headcounts left and right to try to solve for this problem. Using automation and technology will be important. I think I'll kind of round it out with just a visual for you all around the AP invoicing side. There's hundreds of these types of portals that are out there today. Billtrust is interacting with nearly 200 of them already today, and it's growing significantly. You'll see the 34% increase just over the past 12 months. So something to kind of think about as you're you're planning your accounts receivable strategies, not only around payments, but this last portion, again, around the invoice delivery piece.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And then Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll drive the slides. But if you want to talk a little bit about our the connector we've built out for Cloudsuite, and and then we can move to the questions to wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of NSA clients on SXC, certainly our existing Billtrust clients on the AR side, and we're seeing a lot of SXC clients, of course, migrate to Cloudsuite. Because of the volume of those conversions that we're doing to Cloudsuite that are Billtrust accounts, NSA has worked very closely with Billtrust to integrate a consistent methodology for how the two different solutions, the ERP and the Billtrust AR systems, work together. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the person that really spearheaded this from the NSA side is the VP of our technical services, Brian Jones. He happens to be on the call today as well. So if there are any technical questions around this, I'm going to tap Brian to answer a couple of those. But the Billtrust Connector is the integration of these four primary functions, right? Invoicing, customer statements, open balance information, and open AR information. That all flows from the ERP system into Billtrust in the format that Billtrust wants to see. And then coming back the other way is the payment receipt via Cloudsuite Lockbox. So we bring the payment receipt back via that way in a format that Cloudsuite wants to see as well. And we'll advance the next slide. Oh, there was one more there. Oh, there we go. So the big ROI here on the connector is really the standard methodology of connecting the primary functions of AR and payments together. The process delivers a reduction in the integration costs of 50 to 70% on average. Prior to the connector, this has been kind of a custom one-off for the various clients that want to be able to tie in Billtrust with Cloudsuite. So they've been able to substantially reduce that cost as well as the delivery time. You can see the delivery time is reduced by roughly 50%. We also have an annual maintenance with the connector. What that does is it ensures connectivity with Cloudsuite and Billtrust on enhancements and releases. Certainly when you're dealing with the Cloudsuite product, we know that enhancements are coming out on a monthly basis. This ensures that that connectivity is going to remain there for you no matter what updates and releases there are on either side. You get the full connector functionality with the connector itself. So not everybody may be using every single function today on the Billtrust side, but the connector comes with all of those connections. So if you do decide you want to add one or two of those other capabilities that you're not running today, you've got that available to you. Just simply activate it. We're also working on additional future capabilities that will be available as development continues as well. The other thing that I would just like to briefly mention is that Billtrust also has a very, very powerful e-commerce solution. We work with that as well. And between the AR functionality and the e-commerce will be having a webinar on in another couple of months, so stay tuned for that. With that, I'll open it up for Q&A. If you would, please submit your questions into the chat. You can either enter those questions to me privately or to the group as a whole. And I actually do have a couple of questions, gentlemen, that have come through already. So, and please submit them while we're answering these guys. What level of involvement will my IT team need to have to implement the Billtrust products? That's a really good question.
Yeah, so I think if we're using the connector, that should, I think it's about a 50% reduction in time and cost on the implementation for Billtrust. So a typical project like this generally runs 3 to 4 months. And have we decided on, what the amount of weeks that the connector will reduce on the overall project? Brian Jones, I think you might be the best one to answer that.
Yeah. The connector uses Infor Ion, and it uses the enterprise connector from Cloudsuite to communicate. So from a technical standpoint, ideally your IT staff should know a little bit about Infor OS and Ion, and they should know a little bit about, again, how the enterprise connector piece functions. But as far as the install actually of the NSA connector, it's a couple hours, and then it's, you know, working with you to get it the way you need it. So
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Second question I have for you is, what kind of ROI do Billtrust customers typically see?
Well, we look at it from a couple different angles. So, you know, if an organization is looking to, you know, better utilize their team, their staff for more customer-facing, you know, issues that they're running into, I think that there's ROI there on the time that is saved with the variety of solutions that we have. There's some real hard dollar savings, and some of the big ones we see amongst our customer base are around the reduction in credit card fees, whether we attack that from you know, the interchange piece where we're getting those eligible level 2 and level 3 cards. So our customers, some have seen some significant savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars annually on those, and if they decide to implement a surcharging strategy to completely offset the credit card fees that they incur. And then there's savings around DSO, reduction in, you know, postage and print costs, and you know, some of our most successful customers have seen a 35 to 40% reduction in those fees.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brett. And it just brings to mind an account of NSAs that we've had a call very recently with Billtrust, and just the savings alone on the credit card fees was substantially more than it would be to implement Billtrust. So that was an amazing ROI. And I assume that you guys are seeing those types of things all the time.
Absolutely. So we have tons of scenarios where the credit card savings alone is sometimes double or triple what our annual fees are going to be. So it really makes our job as salespeople a lot easier when we see those situations, because not only are they getting all this automation and technology, but they're going to dramatically reduce their credit card fees.
Excellent. I've got another question for you, gentlemen, here as well. We're getting a lot of credit card payments emailed to us. How can Billtrust help with that?
Mike, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I can jump in. That goes back to show a little bit about that business payments network we talked about earlier, when we expressed that some of these larger buyers are now using those third-party payable systems to make payments. It's not uncommon for those payments to be a specific amount for a specific vendor with a specific time frame they have to be processed. Those are done from a security standpoint for the AP side of the house. But what they've ultimately done is caused a lot of, I guess, problems to the accounts receivable groups like ourselves, because they are tough to transact and they're a little bit more cumbersome. They take anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes per transaction. Billtrust offers a way to automate that. So we've built the business payments network, which communicates with these third-party payers. We can also pick up those emails from our customers' AR inbox. We set up an auto forward where it goes to a new dedicated PCI secure inbox, where in there we have built artificial intelligence and bots and AI that will actually pick out those payments, automate and process that credit card while delivering the remittance back to you all to apply automatically and handle all the cash application processes. So a lot to kind of go in there, but technology is here now to kind of start tackling what's ultimately been a pretty tough accounts receivable process in years past.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Mike. At this point, I don't have any other questions. I would ask people take this moment, if you would, if you have any, for any last minute questions, to please go ahead and enter them in. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Brett and Mike, and also Brian Jones for being able to jump in with some insight as well on the connector for this particular session. Everybody that's on the session today will receive a recorded copy of this webinar, which you should have within the next 24 to 48 hours. I would ask that you please feel free to reach out to either myself or the Billtrust team if you're interested in possibly either as an existing Billtrust AR account, moving to Cloudsuite and using the connector, or if you're possibly looking for the AR automation. Again, we can certainly set up a demonstration for a one-on-one and make sure that we're specific with that. And we do have one other question that's come through. What does the NSA connector actually do? Is just scripting with Ion for data mapping. And Brian, if you don't mind, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, essentially that's really what it is. It's scripting for Ion, it's data mapping. There are some extensions that go into the system. For example, if you email statements, you don't want to email your statements from CSD and email the statements at the same time from Billtrust. So we've got an extension and some things built into there where you don't email them out of CSD, but yet Billtrust still has the smarts to be able to pick up the email addresses as you set them in ARSC, and it follows through properly. So a lot of the little pieces and parts and things like that in the system. But yeah, it's a bunch of translations. What we do is we take the Ion BODs, invoice BOD, for example, and we essentially map it to the invoice XML that Billtrust wants. We do similar things with the statement. We add some additional data to the OpenAR and Open Balance files, and we also, do the mechanics of transferring the files back and forth to Billtrust.
Great, thank you, Brian. I think one of the key points that you mentioned there also is the fact that it's in the preferred format on both sides, right? The Billtrust side as well as the Infor Cloudsuite side. So it makes that whole process a whole lot cleaner and more efficient. Correct. Thank you for that question, Chris. Any other questions at this point? Well, folks, I'd like to thank everybody that attended today's session, and we're going to give you almost a half hour of your day back, and look forward to any further follow-up we'll have with you, and we'll be getting that email out to you shortly. Thank you once again to Brett and Mike for holding the session, and Brian Jones as well for more details on the connector for us. And wishing all you guys have a good day.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks. It was great to meet everyone.
Thank you, guys.